Top 5 Most Frightening Japanese Cryptids. Number 5. Joragumo. Translated to English, Joragumo means woman spider. However, the kanji can also mean entangling bride or horse spider. They are cunning and appear as seductive young women. They feed on young men who fall for their tricks, trapping them in their webs and devouring them slowly. The Joragumo legend is based on the real golden orb weaver spider, which is found all around Japan. When the spider reaches 400 years old, she will transform into a Joragumo and start preying on humans. There are several stories based on the Joragumo. In Tanoigusa, a young warrior encounters a beautiful woman. Realizing she is a yokai, he strikes her with his sword, and she flees to the attic. There, they find a dead spider about 30 centimeters long and surrounded by decaying bodies. In Izu, Joran Falls is home to a Joragumo. The legend says a woodcutter encountered the spider when she tried to drag him behind the waterfall. He escaped, warning the village to stay away, but an outsider met the Joragumo. Surprisingly, she let him live as long as he never spoke of it. Unfortunately, the man was the opposite of Koi. The story diverges from there, but most versions end with him entangled in spider web and wishing he had kept his mouth shut. Worse, Joragumo isn't the only killer spider in Japan. Tsuchigumo dirt. Earth spider are huge wandering spiders with human-like faces that hide in corners and dark spaces. They were likely influenced by the real-life Chinese bird spider and bandits and soldiers that hid and ambushed people. Number 4. Gashadakuru. Gashadakuro are skeletal giants which wander around the countryside in the darkest hours of the night. Their teeth chatter and bones rattle with the gachi-gachi sound of this ikai's namesake. But they are not always noisy. If this should happen upon a human outlaid on the roads, the Gashadakuro will silently creep up and catch their victims, crushing them in their hands or biting off their head. Soldiers whose bodies rot in the fields and victims of famine who die unknown in the wilderness rarely receive proper funerary rites. Unable to pass on, their souls are reborn as ghosts, longing eternally for that which they once had. These people die with anger and pain in their hearts. That energy remains long after their flesh has rotted from their bones. As their bodies decay, their anger ferments into a grudge against the living, which twists them into a supernatural force. When the bones of hundreds of victims gather together into one mass, they form the humongous, skeletal monster known as the Gashadakuro. Too large and powerful to be killed, Gashadakuro maintain their existence until the energy and malice stored up in their bodies has completely burned out. However, because of the large amount of dead bodies required to form a single one, these abominations are rarer today than they were in the past. The earliest record of a Gashadakuro goes back over 1,000 years to a bloody rebellion against the central government by a samurai named Toyoro no Masakado. His daughter Takayasha Haim was a famous sorceress. When Masako was eventually killed for his revolt, his daughter continued his cause. Using her black magic, she summoned a great skeleton from the bodies of dead soldiers to attack the city of Kaido. Her monster is depicted in a famous print by Utagawa Kuniyoshi. Number 3. The Yamaba. Yamaba are the old hags and witches of the Japanese mountains and forests. They were once human but became corrupted and transformed into monsters. Some sport horns or fangs, but most often look just like kind old ladies with no sign of their evil nature until they attack. Sometimes Yamaba are created when young women accused of crimes or wicked deeds flee into the wilderness and live in exile. The women transform gradually over many years into mountain witches. In some cases, their origin can be explained by an old custom from times of famine or economic hardship. When it became impossible to feed everyone, families had to make a hard choice: remove one member so that the rest can survive. Often the sacrifice chosen was the newly born or the elderly. Some families led their mothers deep into the woods and left them there to die. Yamaba live alone in huts by the road, where they occasionally offer weary travelers shelter, food, and a place to sleep. Late at night when their guests are fast asleep, Yamaba transform into their true shape, an ugly, old, demonic witch. Thus revealed, they try to catch and eat their guests using powerful magic. Stories of encounters with Yamaba have been spread by those few travelers lucky enough to escape. These tales were then passed along for generations until they came to be told as bedtime stories to disobedient children.
Be good or Yamaba will come to get you.
Number 2. The Kappa River Children. Kappa are aquatic, reptilian humanoids who inhabit the rivers and streams flowing over Japan. Clumsy on land, they are at home in the water and thrive during the warm months. Kappa are generally the size and shape of a human child. Yet despite their small stature, they are physically stronger than a grown man. Their scaly skin ranges from a deep, earthy green to bright reds and even blue. Kappa bodies are built for swimming. They have webbed, thumbless hands and feet, a turtle-like beak and shell, and an elastic, waterproof skin that reeks of fish and is said to be removable. Other inhuman traits include 3 anuses that allow them to pass 3 times as much gas as humans, and 4 arms attached to one another inside of their shells. Pulling on one arm lengthens it while the other arm contracts. But their most distinguishing characteristic is a dish-like depression that lies on top of their skulls. This dish is the source of a Kappa's power and must be kept filled with water at all times. Should the water be spilled and the dish dry up, the Kappa will be unable to move. It may even die. While younger Kappa are frequently found in family groups, adult Kappa live solitary lives. However, it is common for Kappa to befriend other Ikai and sometimes even people possessed of a keen intelligence. Kappa are one of the few Ikai able to learn human languages. They are highly knowledgeable about medicine and the art of setting bones. According to legend, friendly Kappa taught these skills to humans. For fun, they love causing mischief, practicing martial arts like sumo wrestling, and playing games of skill like shogi. Kappa are proud and stubborn, but also fiercely honorable. They never break a promise. Kappa will eat almost anything, but they are particularly fond of 2 foods. Cucumbers and raw innards are particularly human anuses. Kappa are revered in Shinto as a kind of water god. It is not uncommon to see offerings of cucumbers made at riverbanks by devout humans. In return, Kappa help people by irrigating fields, befriending lonely children, or competing with adults in sports and games. Kappa can also be crass and dangerous. Lakes and rivers where they live are often marked with warning signs. Kappa particularly despise cows and horses, and will attack the animals for no reason at all. Mischievous by nature, they loudly fart in public, and love to pick up women's kimonos. Sometimes their mischief turns violent. Kappa have been known to kidnap or rape swimming women, and kill people. A Kappa's preferred method of attack is to drown its victims, or bite them to death underwater. Kappa also devour humans alive. In the water, there is no escape for anyone who crosses a Kappa. On land, however, it is possible to outwit one. The honorable Kappa will feel obliged to return a bow. If it can be tricked into bowing so low that the water in its dish spills out, it can be overcome. Once bested, Kappa have been made to swear loyalty and friendship to their victor for the rest of their lives. Number 1. Kuchisake onna. The Kuchisake onna is the ghost of a woman who was mutilated and has come back to wreak vengeance on the world. Her name comes from the deep, bloody gash which runs across her face, grinning from ear to ear. She appears at night to lone travelers on the road, covering her grisly mouth with a cloth mask, a fan, or a handkerchief. Kuchisake onna sneaks up on her victims in the dark and asks them if they think she is beautiful. Watashi, kirei. If the victim answers yes, she pulls off her mask and reveals a red, blood-dripping, grotesque mouth. Then she asks in a grisly voice if they still think she is beautiful. Korei demo. If her victim answers no or screams in terror, she slashes him from ear to ear in an imitation of her own mutilation. If he lies and answers yes a second time, she walks away, only to follow her target home and slaughter him brutally that night. The spirits of the dead who were killed in particularly violent manners, abused wives, tortured captives, defeated enemies often do not rest well. The Kuchisake onna is thought to be one such woman. However, during the Edo period, a large number of Kuchisake onna attacks were blamed on shape-changed kitsune playing pranks on young men. During the 20th century, the blame began to be placed on ghosts, serial killers, and simple mass hysteria. Over the years, clever young people claim to have outsmarted Kuchisake onna by delivering quick, confusing answers, or by throwing money or hard candy at them. This buys enough time to escape from the Kuchisake onna's wrath and lose her in the darkness. Which one did you think was the scariest? Are there any Japanese cryptids that you think should be on the list? Leave it in the comments below.